Good afternoon. How are you today? So glad to see you. Are you weary of problems and challenges and trouble? Do you wonder if just for once you could get a free pass with the next thing coming down the pike? If anyone could ask that, it's Twila Belk, but she doesn't. She's followed Christ into the fray, and he has always seen her through. She's going to tell us about her breast cancer journey today. It's filled with hope and joy. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, the Christian Message Coach, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This is episode number 159 with Twila Belk, and she says our circumstances don't change who God is, they show us who God is. Hello, Twila, how are you?
Hi, Patricia. I am here.
You look beautiful.
What a day to be here.
You look beautiful, and I love that quote. I've never heard it before, and every single time I've heard it, and I've heard it for years now, it touches my heart.
Well, thank you. It's one that's meant a lot to me over the years. It's an original, and I've been saying it for many years because I need to remember that. So again and again, I repeat it, and it's so true. God does show up, and he does teach us about himself in the midst of our circumstances, our not so fun circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And your entire ministry platform is about trust, right?
Yeah, it is. And so God wants me well versed in it.
Yes. When you were diagnosed with breast cancer, it was 2006, is that right?
2016, just 2 years ago, yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot's happened in 2 years, hasn't it?
Oh, it sure has. 2016,
you already had your hands full. You had a very full schedule working with Cease Murphy, an international Christian author. You were have been a writer and speaker for decades, going to writers' conferences and speakers' conferences across the country. And your husband has a health issue that requires a lot of your time and energy.
Yep.
So tell us about your diagnosis day, please, and all of the repercussions. You could see in an instant, just probably exploded in your mind, did they? All the things that were in your life at that time?
Well, yeah, I don't even know how to explain everything because sometimes it's hard to come to grips with, your thoughts. But I was diagnosed on March 10th. I say an uninvited guest came to my party, and I learned about it on March 10th. I had some tests before that, and God showed up. To start out with, I didn't have any health insurance, and that's a big deal. My husband is on he's on disability, and so he's on Medicare, and but I didn't have it. Self-employed, I don't have insurance. I'd rather put food on the table, and so the money deal was the biggest issue for me. It was bigger to me than the cancer deal. And so all through the process, when they told me that I should get a what did you call them? Mammogram, those squishy things that. Yeah, the doctor, my primary care physician, wanted me to get a mammogram, and so the Center for Breast Health called and left a message on my phone and said I needed to set up an appointment. And well, I kind of conveniently forgot to call them back and didn't. And then my primary care physician called back a couple months later and said, "Hey, we've never received your results from that. What's going on?" And it's like, oh, I better call and make that appointment. And I did. And that was at the end of February. And they called back and said, "We found something on your test." And so they said, "You need to get an ultrasound." And I says, "Well, I can't pay for it. I'm not paying for it." And just like for the mammogram, I got a voucher to pay for the mammogram. They found a voucher to pay for the ultrasound.
Yes.
And so as I was there having the ultrasound done, they saw some problems. And they said, "Well, this looks very, we need to do a biopsy." And they were concerned about that. So I sat there on the table with, exposed to the world, I said, they said, "You need a biopsy." And I said, I'm not paying for it. And so while I was sitting there on the table, they made phone calls and they found a program that would cover the costs of the biopsy for me. And so they did that right there. And they said it looked like I was going to need surgery either way. It seemed, they saw some things there, that there was a mass, and they said it was indicative of cancer. And then I got the results on March 10th, and then all kinds of things went into, yeah. And then a few days after that, I learned that it was a very aggressive type of breast cancer. It's the triple negative kind, which is a more recurrent and more fast-growing type of cancer. And so they wanted, my oncologist wanted to go an aggressive route. So we went the chemo route first, and then I had a bilateral mastectomy after I had gone through all those treatments.
And it's 2018 now, so almost 2.5 years ago, right? Yeah. How long did all this? How long did this spread out over the course of these last 2.5 years?
Well, let's see. I got the diagnosis in March, and then so that put me in a flurry of tests. I had to get all kinds of different tests and see all kinds of doctors, and I even had to go to the dentist, and to get that, they said it's a good idea before you start chemo to go to your dentist and do, get that taken care of. And
really,
it's all kinds of tests. I went to every kind of doctor imaginable for every kind of test. And I think my first chemo treatment was in April. They had, I had to get a port put in, and I had a lymph node biopsy and all kinds of different things. And so I saw a lot of medical people during that time, and but that was an opportunity to get to meet a lot of people. And I can't help but talk about God. God just kind of slips out of my mouth a lot, So it was neat that even through the middle of these circumstances beyond my control, God still was able to use me to encourage other people. So that was kind of cool. And I can't even remember. I'm gonna blame this on chemo brain. I can't even remember how you got me started on this. What was the question you asked?
No. You're completely fine. You're perfect. Yeah, you're perfect.
So yeah, I started chemo. I had a lot of complications in the midst of that. I went through a program. They call it the first part of the chemo that I had. They call it the Red Devil, and it's a really tough chemo, and it is nicknamed the Red Devil. My husband gave it a different name, the Red Donkey, and I pretty much told that devil what's what, and I put it in its place. So, yes. But we got through that. I did end up having a hospital stint in the middle of that after my first chemo because of complications and several weeks of healing after that, and then so that delayed chemo, and then I finished my chemo. Fireworks went off in October of that year, and November 4th I had my bilateral mastectomy.
Mm-hmm. So even during the time that it was dark and painful and you were having issues that really you and Jesus were the only ones who knew you were on that road to the level of intimacy that you're talking about. And he used your words to minister to you. Tell us about that, please. Shortly. It was, first of all, let me tell you about my first chemo treatment. It was in April, and there was a gentle rain going down. And, I knew right away that was God smiling on me, because he knows that raindrops remind me of his power, presence, and purpose. In fact, I did a book called Raindrops from Heaven, Gentle Reminders of God's Power, Presence, and Purpose. And so it was raining that day. And when the nurse took my blood pressure, she expected it to be a really high blood pressure because first day of chemo with the Red Devil, and it was a very good reading. And she said, "You must not be nervous." And I said, "Nope," because God had sent his reminders of his power, presence, and purpose to me. So that was good. And then just, it was right after that, he brought me to my devotional book, Raindrops from Heaven, that I read. And I read in there, it talked about, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged by this mighty army. This is out of 2 Chronicles when he's talking to Jehoshaphat. He says, "For the battle is not yours, but God's." And that was the reading for that day. And my prayer in the book
says, "Oh Lord, how I need these words. They give me great hope and freedom from the burden of so many ongoing battles." And see, I had a lot of other ongoing battles at home with my husband's issues. My son had some issues going on and financial problems, all kinds of things. And then the cancer. And I said, it takes a lot of energy and resources to fight, Lord. And I don't have the strength or stamina to keep it up. Right now, I'm feeling squeezed on all sides. I have internal pressures, external pressures, and pressures upon pressures. Thank you for being aware of what's going on in my life. Thank you that when I turn my attention to you, I'm reminded that the battles aren't mine, but yours. I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be discouraged. Confidence, courage, and relief come from you, the one who fights for me.
Yes.
And that's what he had me read in the, right in the midst of that. And, months before that, I was wrestling and pacing and crying out to God for words for this book. And and I prayed that God would use them on specific days in specific ways. And that's what he did with me. And that wasn't the only time he spoke to me through this book that he had me write. Many times he gave me just what I needed on that particular day. It's like, God was just smiling on me.
That's one of your wonderful books. And viewers, my normal protocol is I'll add the links to everything that Twila, her Facebook page, her website, her Amazon author page, where all of her books are listed, because you're going to want to get them. You just want to get them all, okay? And that'll be posted after the episode ends. Tell us, you're also, in addition to all the other boiling cauldrons, you're the primary caregiver in your house, aren't you? And have been.
Primary provider and the caregiver. And I'm trying to balance a lot of things. And, it's not a good thing for me to say. I'm embarrassed that I say this, but there were times during my cancer where if I thought about things too much, have a pity party, and I try not to. God doesn't allow me to do that very often, because I truly believe that whatever you focus on is magnified, and then if we focus on our problems, they become magnified. But if we focus on God and who he is, he becomes magnified, and things are a whole lot better. But if we allow our thoughts to linger in the circumstances, it's like we can do a full-blown pity party with balloons and confetti and streamers and all that. And, sometimes I think, wow, I have to take, even though I have cancer, I still have to take care of this and this and this and this. And I says, I can't even enjoy my own cancer. I mean, that was my thought. It's like, wow, I can't even enjoy my own. That's pretty pitiful, isn't it? Well, like, that's something to be enjoyed, but I still had to be caregiver. I still had to take care of my son who was having some issues. I still had to, as a primary provider, and it's like I had to cancel all of my events, all my, I was on the schedule to go to several writers' conferences and teach and speaking engagements, and and that includes book sales that I had to give up, just a lot of things that I had to give up. And so it was I had to trust God completely through that process. But that was a little glimpse of one of my pity party times when I would think, oh, I can't even enjoy my own cancer. But God was so good. He brought me just what I needed right when I needed it every time. And I'm so grateful.
And sometimes it was finances, sometimes it was opportunities, sometimes it was help around the house, all kinds of different transportation help. I mean, all kinds. The list goes on.
It does. And sometimes it was just pink tulips that he brought me. And my good friend, she showed up with pink tulips several times. And to me, the tulip represents hope to me. And because this new life and hope. And he showed up with pink tulips quite often.
Love it.
Yeah. So it's like another smile, another hug from him.
Someone is watching us, or maybe more than someone, more than one person, and they're either going to watch us live or they're going to watch us in the replay, and their life is literally falling apart. And you have been there, and that he was there then, he's there in the middle of it, he was there afterwards, and new opportunities. There is life after darkness isn't there. New opportunities are coming your way.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And at the beginning, after I got my diagnosis, and this is, God gave me some words. Well, these words kept coming through my mind when I was trying to sleep at one night. This was shortly after my diagnosis. They kept, I will not die but live. I will not die but live. And I thought, boy, those really sound familiar to me. And the next morning, I looked them up, and I found them in Psalm 118:17, I believe it is. And it says, I will not die but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. Now, see, that's what I'm all about, because I'm the gotta tell somebody gal. And I determined that that was going to be my focus, my theme throughout. That was a promise God gave me. I will not die but live. But I am going to do what I can to proclaim what God has done in the middle of what I'm going through. And he gave me many opportunities to do that. I got to speak to a lot of medical professionals who were having bad days, and and they couldn't understand, how could I laugh about something when I'm, they're on their third or fourth attempt to try to get, my chemo attached to my port, and it wasn't cooperating, and they couldn't understand how I could laugh. I mean, I was standing on my head practically for them to do, and they, I'm laughing about this. And they couldn't understand that. And, they'd ask, different things would come up in conversation, and I would be able to share with them and encourage them. And so God used that opportunity for me to do a lot of things I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
Yes.
It was a new platform for me, too. I started a Care Pages site, and he had people read what I had written. That I was reaching people that I otherwise wouldn't be able to reach. People who, they'd write back and say, wow, it changed their lives by reading some of the things I wrote. And it's like people that normally wouldn't read things that I write, people who don't know the Lord, and it's like that God used that. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he was able to use me. And I firmly believe that God doesn't waste anything.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. Amen. I love what you just said, that your cancer was a new platform for you to minister.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's tremendous.
It really is. So what we walk through in life, and if we truly believe that God doesn't waste it, think about who it is that you can reach out to. And it makes us more credible in people's eyes when they know we're dealing with that. It's like, yeah, I get it. I might not have the exact same situation as you do, but I get it,
And humor has always been a part of your life. So he was taking something and enhancing it, bringing it even more to the forefront. But the foundation was the biblical knowledge that you had, and the different ways. Before this happened, there was a whole long list of other things that happened. And he had already proved himself over and over and over.
Yeah. And it's crazy. God, like I said before, God gives me plenty of opportunities to be well versed in my topic as a speaker and a writer. My topic is trust, and that's one of the things I joke about is, I tell God, well, it's time to change my topic. I'd rather be well versed in how to be happy with $1 million while living in the Caribbean and looking great in a bikini. I want to be well versed in that. But and I tell people that. But God, if I'm going to minister to other people and tell them, yeah, but God, you can trust God, and he's going to show you who he is in the middle of your circumstances. I can say that with authority because I have come through so much, and I have trusted God. Trust is not always easy. Believe me, I know that trust is not always easy, but it is always rewarded.
And can we make the point that trusting him doesn't mean that we live in la-la land and we're not in pain, we never get scared? I mean, that's
I can live in la-la land without I can live in la-la land most of the time.
There are some who feel that if you're trusting God, then by default, that means you never have a question, you never have a fear, you never have a need that he doesn't immediately feel, and that is just not the case.
No, and he talks a lot about trust. My what I call my life verses. Some of us have those special scriptures that speak to us, and it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And there's a couple of little words in there. We're supposed to trust him with all our heart. All is a lot, isn't it?
It is a lot.
Yeah. And I'm supposed to acknowledge him in all my ways. But then there's something else that it says, and I had an aha moment. It's like, lean not on your own understanding. And it's like, well, yeah, I don't understand everything. And then it hit me that I'm not supposed to understand everything. Mm-hmm. God doesn't want me to understand everything, but he does want me to trust him. Yes. Leave the understanding part up to him. And if I do that, if I trust him and acknowledge him, he promises to take care of me. And so I don't have to know everything. I don't have to understand why this is happening. And if someone would ask me why, that's not, what would it change if I knew why? The question is, what can God show me in this? And when I trust him and acknowledge him, and boy, oh boy, does he show stuff. He proved himself again and again. And he continues to prove himself again and again. Like I said, it's not always easy, but God is always good. And
he is always good. Let me check Facebook. And while I'm doing that, tell me, are some of the things that you already mentioned to us, are they God hugs, or are the God hugs something else altogether? Tell us about that.
God has, I think just everything is God hugs. And I'm wondering if maybe God hugs and grace are similar. I've learned a lot about grace, and it's something that can't be explained. It can only be experienced. Mm-hmm. And grace, I think, is like the thoroughfare. I think the Bible talks about, climbing the mountains or getting through the mountain or getting through the valley. And I think that's what grace is. Grace gets us through the mountain. Grace gets us through the valley. And it's not, he doesn't leave us there. He gets us through it. And to me, that's what grace is. And so I would say grace is one of the biggest God hugs. He embraces us in his bubble of grace, and that's helps us get through. And we can see things in a different perspective. We can see it from his perspective rather than our own. So that just so many things in the way God showed up at certain times, and the different things that he spoke to my heart, or different gifts that he brought along the way when I didn't know how how he would bring money just out of the blue from, here and there, in the mail, or people would stop off at the door, or packages through the mail that only he knew that I needed a nightgown, and then one came through the mail for me from someone who didn't even, just all kinds of things like that. And it's like, wow, he speaks to us in intimate ways. Yes. It shows us that, I'm here. I'm here. Don't forget it. I know you need a nightgown, and he brought it to me. And wow.
Those are some of the most precious times, aren't they?
They are, because it came from God.
Yes.
You can't refute that. It's like, okay, I just have such a great time. I call partying down with God. I just love it because it's like, He understands. He gets it. And he's always loving on me. And he'll send rain right when I need it. And I just know that rain, and I have a saying, that rain is for me. Anytime it rains, my husband will say, it's for you, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it is.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet. Oh, goodness gracious. Robin is here with us. Robin Gunder, she says, your stories always inspire me and seem to pop up at just the right time, Twila. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
And she agrees that God is so, so good.
Yeah.
Let's see. You've talked about, let's go back just for a moment. I wanted to make a point about his promise to you that, and he gave you the phrase, I will not die but live. I think it's important to note, you've already said it, but let's swing back and talk about it one more time and reiterate it, that this wasn't a random verse or a random quote out of a book that you found and tacked on God's name to. He gifted you with this, making it a promise that you could hold on to.
Yeah, and it's not something that, it's like I wasn't even sure where it was. I knew, it sounded like it was a Bible verse to me, but I wasn't, it's just something that I had read before, not one that I had, ever really lingered on, but it was just what I needed. And it just kept going through my mind. Those words, I will not die but live. I will not die but live. And then I looked it up the next morning, and right there was, and only God could say, and I will proclaim what God has done. I'm the God to tell somebody else. How can I not proclaim what God has done? That's what I do. And what's really cool about that is my nieces and sister-in-laws created a really neat wall hanging with that verse on it. And it's in our bedroom today. Oh my. So it's just it's a reminder that I will not die but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. Now, I don't know what kind of life God is talking about, whatever kind of life he's talking about, I'm all for it. And I'm going to tell people about what God has done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When we had earlier, Judy Pearson was here a couple of weeks ago, when you and I tried to connect and we had tech problems. She was here, and she said that, I wanted to ask if this was applied to you as well. She said that there was a cancer Judy, who was the patient, and that there was a watcher or an observer Judy, who was the writer. So did you have that double reality in you, in your experience?
A cancer.
She was the patient, so she was dealing with the things that a patient needs to. And then at the same time, in the same environment, the same circumstances, as a writer, she was observing what was happening so she could capture it and use it in the future.
Well, again, God doesn't waste anything. It was in the midst of my treatment for cancer that I received an email from my publisher, the publisher for Raindrops from Heaven. And they said, Twila, we've been reading your care pages and we've been praying for you, know what's going on. And would you have any interest in doing any more books with us? No, not at all. And they mentioned 3 different possibilities. And out of that, because they came to me, I didn't go to them. This was one of those God hugs, those God opportunities. They proposed to me the book, The Power to Be. Be still, be grateful, be strong, be courageous. And, it's like, wow, what do I write about? That's I prayed about that, and I prayed about that, and God, it hit me that these are the messages that I would always speak. When as a speaker, these are the truths that I speak. It's just packaged in a different title, in a different way. And it's like only God could do that. And I wrote this book. It came out earlier this year, in March of this year. And I feel like it's my legacy book. It has those messages, all those messages that I just needed to get out there. And it's like, wow, only God could do that. And I just love what he did with the book, and I'm really excited about it. And again, it was just a God thing, because that doesn't happen very often in the publishing industry. We write a proposal and send it to a publisher. They came to me and asked. And the same kind of thing happened with Raindrops from Heaven. Pretty cool.
I particularly like this for lots of reasons, but particularly the size.
Oh yeah, perfect for stocking stuffers or a purse.
That's what I'm saying. A diaper bag, a briefcase.
And it feels nice in your hands. The publisher, you want to pet it.
Yes. The front is embossed. It's wonderful. Each is a 40-day devotional. Each devotional is got real life practical truth, as what you mentioned earlier. And then prayer, a power statement. Tell us what a power statement is for you, please.
Well, it's something that you can say, repeat, a positive statement that, let me see if I can find one here. Where's my book?
Well, I've got an example right here. If you
why don't you tell, and see, with each one, it's statements that we can repeat and think, I will do this, so it has us focusing on the right things and focusing on truth and speaking truth. So
this one says, this is chapter 11, I believe. Yes, chapter 11. And the power statement We might want to talk about chapter 11 quickly, a man named Lawrence that you met. But the power statement for that chapter is, God has given me an extraordinary gift that came at an exorbitant price. That makes me feel valuable, and that makes me feel like a treasure of God's, rather than, oh, woe is me, I'm down in the dumps, nothing ever good happens to me. Going back to what you said earlier, whatever you focus on magnifies.
Yeah, whatever we focus on becomes magnified. And it's just, we really need to remember that, because if we focus on everything bad that's happening, things that it's like, wow, we could really go pretty low. We could get, slide down, it's a slippery slope into that deep, dark pit. And it's sure hard to see light when we're in the bottom of that pit.
Sure
and
is.
so, but if we turn our eyes to God and look to Him, we just need to really make an effort to do that. It's, it's not always easy to change our attention, but we need to start repeating truth. What we know to be true about God, what the Bible says about God, what we've learned from experience about God. I know that God cares. He loves me. He's my burden bearer. He, this and this and this, and we speak those positive truths that we know about God. That will really help us to get, out of that pit and to see light. And
I find that
different that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I find that speaking, this is not going to be new to you, I'm not even suggesting that, but I find that speaking scripture out loud really gets me going. It goes deeper than just reading it. Sometimes silently reading it is the thing to do. But when I have the house to myself, or when I'm really, really feeling something negative or fantastic, it can be a praise. But I can really get excited or feel that that fighting spirit, being rejuvenated when the enemy's just told me this is all you have to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I speak the truth out and the biblical scriptures. It empowers me.
Truth is powerful, and God wants us to know truth. It clears the airwaves too. And another thing that's so good, one thing that helps me too is if I'm, having those days that aren't, where you're wanting to look the opposite direction, to put on praise music, and that just kind of gets in your mind and it gets your focus in the right direction and back to that truth. Because we have an enemy out there, and he's prowling around. He loves to tell us those stinking lies, and he's a big fat liar. And I tell him that a lot. You're a big fat liar, and we need to remember that. And but that's not God's plan. God doesn't want the enemy's plan for it. He came to steal and cheat and kill and destroy. But God came to give us life to the full. Jesus came to give us life to the full, life abundantly. I will not die but live. That life, God came to give me life, and so we need to remember that truth. And
it has been so wonderful to visit with you today and hear this. I'm glad we didn't do it before.
I am too, because I was discombobulated that day. Oh, it's a state I find myself in quite often.
I feel your energy. I feel your faith. There's spiritual momentum in what you're saying and how you're saying it. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful time. And you've had problems before, as we have all, and you're going to have problems again.
That's a promise. God said, Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. Yep. He kept that promise.
But He will be with us.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Twila. Let me check Facebook one more time and see if we've got anything going on here. Excuse me. I don't see anything. If you have a comment or a question, if you're here live and you have a comment or a question, we welcome that. After the episode finishes, feel free to make another text comment, fill in the blank if you have a question about somebody that you love that's experiencing cancer, or about Twila's latest book or any of her other 6 books. This is The Power to Be. And is it be still? Tell me
Still, be grateful, be strong, be courageous.
Be courageous.
There's 4 sections in it, 10 chapters in each section. And it's it really is. And I'm not bragging about me. I'm bragging on what God did with it. It's a beautiful book. The publisher did a fabulous job with it. And it really, it's a nice gift to give for anybody, those hard to buy for people, or just, to slip in a Christmas stocking or whatever. It's just really a nice gift.
And there are people who will read this that wouldn't maybe sit down and read an entire book that has a
That's right.
thread all the way through it.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're just short, easy to read chapters that have some power to it, and yeah.
Written by a lady while she was undergoing chemo treatments. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, I had to live it. No. I know the truth of it. I know the truth of it.
Thank you, viewers. We appreciate you being here as well. We're here for you every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. Tomorrow, author and speaker Kimberly Ray joins me. If you haven't heard of Kimberly, God changed her identity from an active, vibrant missionary to a stay-at-home author and advocate with seven chronic illnesses. And her message is how to live with joy with chronic illness. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you again, Twila. It's always, always an honor and a privilege to be with you.
I love it. Thanks for having me.
See you tomorrow.